Hello, thank you so much for joining me here today. I want to discuss with all of you 5 things that you want to think about when you're working with an assistant in your Montessori classroom. The first thing I would like to mention is that it's like a marriage. You're spending every single day, well, Monday through Friday typically, with that person all day long. So it's important that you have good communication. That's very important. Try to set up some sort of routine where you leave each other notes, and usually the lead teacher creates some sort of record keeping system for the children, so you could also have a log that you keep, possibly with the records for the children, so that you and your assistant can go back and forth and leave notes on important things that you either observed in the classroom or that you want to remember to do together. We usually in primary change practical life a few times a year, so working together to change practical life. Sometimes you can't always touch base with each other throughout the classroom day. So in the past, I've used a log with my assistant, and it worked out really well. And then you want to touch base like at least once a week, if not in the afternoon every day for 10 to 15 minutes, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and to catch up on the day. So communication, number one. Number two, it is also incredibly helpful, if this kind of ties into communication, before the school year starts, ideally, you want to, excuse me, I just got out of the pool, so I'm a little bit messy right now. But I wanted to get this to you guys because it's good information. Before the school year starts, you want to sit down with each other and set a game plan for the year. Set some goals and outline a flexible schedule. Obviously it's going to change, and it's going to, it's organic, it's going to grow, and depending on the needs of the children. But you want to have some goals that you both are on the same page with for the school year. And it's really important that you talk about those things before the school year starts, so you have a framework together for the school year. So first one's communication, second one's framework. The third one is you need to train your assistant. So your assistant may or may not have Montessori training. The Association of Montessori International, AMI, has an assistance training for the primary assistants that are working with the 3 to 6 year olds, but not everybody. In fact, I've only been at one school where the director had the training. So it's not very common for your assistant to come in with Montessori training. So you want to touch base with that person and do your best to educate them on what a Montessori classroom looks like. Give them a feel for what the day is going to look like ahead of time. Prepare them for any possible behavior issues. Obviously, you cannot anticipate all of them. However, you can give them some stories, just like our great stories in elementary. Share some stories and experiences with them that you've had in the past, so that they can get a feel for what it's going to be like. So you want to train them in preparing them for what a typical day looks like. Go over a little bit of what the different areas of the classroom are like, what the materials offer, what the lessons are going to look like. And most importantly, talk to them about what you need for support from them. So you've got communication, you've got a framework, you want to train them. And within the training, you want to talk about like for instance, when I was working in the primary classroom, I was very blessed because I had an assistant who had over 28 years of experience. So she had worked with several teachers before me, and they had already trained her. So that was priceless. But in the instance that you get someone who has no idea what Montessori is and doesn't have any, experience so far, it's important that you share with them what it looks like, because it's nothing like a traditional school. And that's more often the case than not the case, is that you get someone who was just hired and who may have heard, Montessori is an amazing method of education, and they're curious, and they might have children in the school as a parent. So they come in to assist and they don't really know what to expect. So you've got communication, you've got framework, you've got training, you've got support. Be as detailed as possible. Create some, what's the word I'm thinking of? You want to create lots of opportunities for your assistant to ask you questions and create a foundation so that they are successful. And if they are successful in the classroom and they're helping you as much as possible and helping you with what you need throughout the day, especially when it comes to the children, then your classroom will normalize faster. That's your goal, obviously, is to normalize that classroom as quickly as possible. So you've got, let's see here, communication, framework, training, support. It's like a marriage, as I mentioned before. And the fifth one is anticipation. So it goes into training and support. So you want to train them on what Montessori looks like. You want to ask them for support. You want to be as detailed as possible in setting it up so that they can support you, so that you can continue giving as many lessons as possible within the classroom. And then the last thing you want to do is anticipate any problems that could possibly arise within the classroom. So hopefully, as a teacher, you are fairly well experienced and you have a good idea of what could go wrong. So you want to sit down and talk to your assistant about some of those things. For instance, I had a little guy come in. I had two adorable twins that were related to the director. Incredibly cute little guys. They knew they were cute. Yeah. Anyhow, they were young and they weren't quite potty trained yet, but because they were family, they were brought in, and thankfully I had an extra person to help me with them. However, because they were far from normalized and had never been in a Montessori classroom before, they were pulling things off the shelves. That's something that you can anticipate. The 2.5 to 3-year-olds at home, they may have one of those toy chests where they're just pulling the toys out and they're making a big mess, and then mom comes in and cleans up the mess for them. I have seen that so often. The children do not clean up after themselves. So parent education. It's really important that if your child makes a huge mess, that you encourage him or her to clean up their own mess. Because if they know that you're going to clean it up for them, they're just going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. They're like, I've got a personal servant who's going to clean up after me. Why would I do it myself? Anyhow, they're brilliant, folks. So anyhow, because that's the case more often than not, they have parents who, pick up after them. When they come into the Montessori classroom, sometimes they'll pull things off the shelves. So you want to talk to your assistant about educating those young ones when they come into the classroom and talking to them about how they can observe their friends working, and they will be receiving plenty of lessons. However, they are not to take things off the shelf unless they've had a lesson on it. Obviously, this is on a case-by-case basis. I'm not I have heard that some AMI teachers, primary teachers, are very strict about children not taking things off the shelves if they've not received a lesson on it. I'm not like that. If I've got a 3-year-old who comes into the classroom and mom was working with her at home and she is somewhat normalized and she's curious about some things on the shelf, as long as they're not breaking the items that they're working with and they're not hurting themselves or another child, I'm okay with them taking something off the shelf that they haven't received a lesson on and they're curious about and they're kind of exploring it. I'm okay with that. I've observed that many times in the past. I encourage them to wait until they have a lesson, because sometimes they take it off the shelf and they don't know what to do with it. So they might, like, for instance, if it's shoe polishing and they're, dipping the polish in the water, and it can be messy. So, but the children are so brilliant. We underestimate their capabilities so often. They will observe the older children doing it, and then sometimes they'll take it out and they'll do it beautifully. They'll just from having watched their friends do it. And I know this is also not something that's often condoned by Montessori teachers. However, I have seen a child that I have not given a lesson to take out something such as flower arranging and do a beautiful job. Like a 4-year-old who is watching the 5 and 6-year-olds. So that comes from observation, when you're observing and taking notes. And that's your log that you keep with your assistant. So if your assistant sees something and she writes it down, sometimes she or he, that person is going to see things that you wouldn't necessarily have caught in the classroom. And you just go and, take notes in that log. And I want to reiterate that it is like a marriage, and communication is so important. And trying to anticipate issues before they happen, training that person as much as you can before the school year starts. So we've got 5 things. We have communication, framework, how that person can support you, how you can support them. What's the 4th thing? Keep a log as far as communication is concerned. Support, anticipation. You want to anticipate any of the things that could possibly happen in the classroom. And we had training before anticipation. So you've got communication, framework, support, training, and anticipation. 5 things to help you with your assistance in the primary Montessori classroom. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Please feel free to always ask a Montessorian if you have any questions, and I hope that you all have a fabulous day. Remember to stop and enjoy those precious little people that you're working with, because before you know it, they'll graduate and leave your classroom, and they leave little footprints, in your heart. So anyhow, thanks again for watching.